start making a brown bear. You could also make this a black bear, or you could make it, well, any color of bear. We're not going to be doing an armature at all for this bear, so it's kind of fun. This is one that would be great for an ornament, or, you know, just kind of a cute bear. We're not going realistic here. So I'm starting out with a small chunk bowl. It is about 20 inches long and it's about 2 inches wide. And you can use really whatever is handy. Like sometimes I grab my scissors, sometimes a ruler. And the reason we do this, we're going to wrap it around whatever you have. You don't want it too wide, and you want it something you could easily pull off of. But it helps so we can practically, in a way, pre-felt our wool. You can see the stuff I have, it's kind of hard to wrap, so I just kind of do it in sections. If it falls apart, and I just start over and I add more. This is from Gray Fox Felting. It's one of my favorite wools to work with, especially for like these more whimsical makes. Oh, you can see when I pulled it off, some of it came off there. It's not a big deal at all. So this is going to be the start of the belly of the bear. He's going to get a little bit bigger than that though. But I'm going to do my initial felting here and get this just to a nice little cylinder shape to start. So you can use a 36 gauge, 38 gauge, and then a 40 gauge. So the 36 is what I'm using now. That's our build-up needle. Then we're going to switch to a 38 for more finer spots, especially for the legs. I like to switch to a 38. And then when we start adding little details, I like to switch to my 40. So give me a few minutes here, and I'm just going to go ahead and felt this so it's pretty solid. And we have a cylinder shape like this. So you can just keep felting around until you have that shape created by felting in where you need to. Keep moving it around so you can keep seeing angles of it. Don't just like focus on one side. And just keep moving. Any fibers that are sticking up, and you want to get it as firm as about a day-old bagel. All right. So I'm just going to pause the camera here and get that pretty well solidly felted. So my middle is pretty solid here. It could get felted a little more, but I'm pretty happy with it. So what you want to do is we're going to keep wrapping it and building it up. We want it a little bigger. We don't want too small of a bear. So I'm just going to wrap it more here. I'm going to make it a little longer. So once again, this is still just the main body of the bear. Wrap it around. And one thing about this bear is you kind of like want to picture it as you're doing this. The back side is going to be bigger than the front. So it's going to go down, like the head will be about here, and the back side is going to be up higher. So as you're doing it, you can already start picturing, okay, this is my back side. I'm going to make that a little bigger. And so I think this little wad that I have is going to be the perfect shape. At least the perfect size for what I want the middle to be. So once again, I just keep felting at it. So now my size that I have here is, it's about 3 inches long. You could be a little longer, that's fine. And it's about 2 inches wide. And once again, you could be wider. These dimensions don't have to be perfectly what yours is. I do recommend being a little bit on the bigger side because as you felt, it's going to get smaller. So, but anything, my dimensions are going to get smaller as I felt this down. So once again, I'm going to pause here and just take the next 20-30 minutes to felt this really well. And then we're going to start adding the rump, and then we'll start putting like just the basic part of the face on. So with this all firmed up enough, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start adding on the face. So it's kind of feels, I mean, this isn't how everyone does it, But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take just this small section of wool and I'm going to kind of fold it. And I'm going to put it about where the head goes. Now, if I'm doing one that is with an armature, I do this a lot different. But the head's going to go a little bit below the rest of the body. Like in line with the bottom, it's going to drop down. And I'm just doing the front of the head, like the neck, and I guess when I say the front, I'm doing the forehead. I'm not going to add in the nostril area, the nose area yet. So I'm just going to do this little bump out, which will be the neck and the head top part. Okay. And we're going to flip it over. We're going to do the other side. And we're just going to take another chunk that's about the same size and we're going to put it exactly over where we have the first one. So it's like this, okay? And you want to go ahead and felt that down. And then once that's pretty well felted, you might need to add a little bit more to it. And like make it a little thicker. And then we'll start in on the legs. So here's the addition of my head. Now I should have measured earlier, after I added on that main chunk of wool without the head area, to show you how much it shrunk down with my felting. Because before it was 3 inches, now that body part ends about here and it's about 2 inches long and it's about just over 1 inch wide. It's probably 1 1/4 inch. Now with the addition of the head, it's a little over 3 inches. And so now what I want to do, the body is going to get built out more, so I'm not going to think too much on that, because once we add the legs, it's going to come out, and then we're going to add a little more fat. Plus, we're going to build up this back end a little more. But I do want this head of mine to get wider by, right now it's at 1/4 inch, maybe 1/3 inch. Now, I probably want to go with about 1/2 inch. So I'm going to make it a little wider. I don't want it too wide on one side, like come out too far, so I'm going to add a little wool on both sides so it's even with the rest of the body. And then I'm going to, get that solidly felted in. And then we'll start working on the legs, and then once the legs are attached, we can start adding the rump and everything. So here it is. The head, you can see now, is about about 1/2 inch wide. And then if you're wondering, it's about 3/4 inch tall. And then now what we're going to do, like I said, is we're going to start working on legs. I'm actually going to switch from scissors to a pair of tweezers. It's, like I said, whatever you have handy. And we're going to take a section of wool. And you want to start, I always say less is more. So this is about 1 inch wide. It is about 8 inches long. And we're going to start by wrapping it around the tweezer. And we probably want it to be about 2 inches long. Okay. Like that. I'm going to need mine to be even bigger because right now it's not very wide. You see, if we put this on the leg as is, it's close, but I want it to be a little bit thicker. So I'm going to go with maybe a 4 inch wide section. Not wide, but long section. And I'm going to wrap it. Now, if you have pieces that are like falling off, unraveling, you could always take your needle. Like I said, I'm switching to my 38. One handy way to keep your needle straight is to use different needle holders, different looking ones. I like using needle holders, but you don't have to if you don't want to. I'm just going to kind of felt around this, but be careful of whatever you have in the center to wrap around. Now for this, I also grabbed the tweezers because you want something skinny enough to wrap around. So like a pen would work. A pen that's doesn't have like a grip around the bottom, anything that's going to hold on to the wool as you pull it off. Okay, so now I want to go ahead and pull that off. See how it looks. That's pretty good. So now what I want to do is I want to make 4 of these that are all the same size. That's the trickiest part, okay? So getting these the same size, and you're going to want to felt them pretty well. But getting them the same size is the trickiest part. So just kind of try and pull off the same amount you did for the first one, and kind of remember what you did when you added up. Like when you added more to it, if you did, about how much you added, and then usually that kind of helps. And so these are, like I said, about 2 inches long too, just if you need to know. And I got them to about 1/2 inch wide. So I'm going to go ahead and do 3 more that are the same size. And then you want to spend some time felting them fairly well. The top part here doesn't have to, or I should say, you need the pick and end that's going to be the foot, and you need the pick and end that's going to attach. So the attaching part doesn't have to be as well felted. It could be a little fuzzy. In fact, fuzzy is good because the fuzzier it is on top, the easier it is to attach to the rest of the body. 4 legs about the same size that all come out looking like this. And now we get to attach them, but before we do that, we'll add on a little bit of a foot. So I'm just going to take this small little chunk of wool, really tiny, and roll it with my fingers a little bit. Then right in front of the foot, whatever side is going to be the bottom, I'm using a 36, I'm going to use a 38 there. You just kind of felt it on. And then felt the bottom part. You might have a little bit here of like a gap. You can either keep felting that, or you could take just a thin piece of wool, cover that gap. Anywhere you have gaps, that's an easy way to cover them and make it more of a clean area. So keep felting at it a little. And then there you go. You got a little bit of a paw. So you want to do that on each of them. And then you want to go ahead and attach. So the other thing when we attach, we want to make sure that all of them are lined up in the same length. So I'm going to do mine at about 1 inch off the body, and then the other inch, because it's 2 inches tall, on the body. And then you want to attach. And here to attach, 36 gauge probably would be helpful to really get it on there solidly. And you can see how I'm doing this for the front leg. It's right where the neck starts, right behind that. And mine's just a little bit off to the side here, so you could turn it a little and felt it. If you just keep it turned in the position you want and felt around, it usually will straighten itself out. If not, you could always reposition your paw, take it off, and redo to fit where it's going to be. So now I'm going to do the same thing with the paw for the back and all the other sides. And attaching for the back is the same. The only thing is we really want to make sure everything's going to end up being the same length, coming off the body so it stands up tall. Okay. You could pull out a ruler too, just to make sure everything. So now I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna do the opposite side, and then we're going to come in and we're going to start shaping a little bit. I'm going to do the opposite side, but then I'm going to go over also and refelt some of this because I have fuzzy feet and everything. So I'm just going to firm it all up a little more than it is. All right. So our bear is starting to get there. My legs are attached and you can see he stands. You can kind of wiggle him around too, which is fun. So now what we want to do is we want to start giving him some definition, and we want to build up this back end. Now, if you feel like he's too short, you could always do this. You grab him on both ends and just wiggle, 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 and it kind of stretches those fibers out. And then you can add some length to him. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to start by just building up the back end of our bear. So you could just take a small chunk and add it right onto the back, on top, and felt that in. And then once it's on there pretty well, what we want to do is we want to define these back legs. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take a section of wool, and this is not very big. It's like 1 inch wide, 2 to 3 inches long, and you want to just fold it so you end up with something like this. And then you're going to line it up about where the knee would go, so halfway down the leg that's from the body down. And you want to just felt it in. You use a 38 gauge needle, and then bring it up so it's about middle of the body. And then you could use your needle and kind of pull some wool back on that back leg so that it comes into the back part too. And then you just want to felt it so it keeps this definition, this line here. And you kind of want it to round a little bit too. So then we're just going to keep felting at it. And then you want to felt in the top. Do the same on the other side with this right here. You just want to make sure when you do the opposite side, you line it up so you're going in the same spot so it's even on both sides. And then we'll add some definition next to these front legs. So this is what it looks like now that I've added definition back here, and I felt it for a little bit. So now we want to do our definition for the front, which the front's super, super easy. You're just going to take a small bit of wool like this, and we're going to cover our attached leg. We're going to come down a little over the top and then a little down below. Mainly we're just covering up those attachment points on the very top. So then it comes out looking like this. So once we do that, one thing we're going to want to do is, besides the other side, is we need to add more belly to this. So I'm going to add a little attachment to the other side. It, of course, still needs better felted, but we're going to put on a bigger belly. We want a chubby bear, not a skinny bear. This is a fall bear, not a spring bear. We have a lot of bears where we live, so they have a warm place in my heart. Of course, it's a little terrifying sometimes, but in general, it's really great. We on average have 2 or 3 that like to roam close by. Depends on if it's male or female. If it's females, we're going to have more. We've had cubs, and it's all just right in our yard. We live on a creek with lots of fruit trees and everything, wild plums. So they come about August and stay until it's time to hibernate. All right. So let's give them more of a belly. So we're just going to take a nice sized chunk of wool, probably a little more than that. Now you can always add more. It's harder to take away, so just remember that. We're going to slide it between the legs. I'm going to focus more on the middle, not so much on the back here. So right in this section. And you can just push it in. You could switch to your 36 gauge needle for this if you wanted to. It might make the legs wider, so you kind of want to make sure you're holding the legs where you want them to stay, so it doesn't do that. And then it'll kind of felt them in that position too. All right, so I'm gonna felt this down a little more. I'm gonna felt these parts. Make sure it comes up on the sides a little. And then you wanna make sure you keep this definition back here for the thigh, for the front. You don't wanna lose that. So if you lose that, you can just take a small bit of wool and bring it along that line where it should be and add it in to make sure that definition stays in place. And then felt it in really well. So I'm just gonna felt all of this down really well spend a little bit of time, and then we're gonna start addressing that head. So now we're gonna go ahead and add on a snout since everything here is firmed up. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pull out, I think I'm gonna do this like oatmeal color that I have. I'm gonna use my tweezers. You don't need very much. Probably just about a 1/2 inch wide by 2 inches. And you want to pretty much wrap it so it's about that 1/2 inch length. Now, I think I need just a little bit more for mine. Pull it off. Oh, sorry, I might have wrapped that off film, and I apologize for that. Back this up a little. So, that's it. You're going to add it to the front of your bear. It's going to possibly seem a little big at first, but as we add other elements, it's going to start looking the right size. All right, now we're going to take and we're going to give our bear more of a forehead. So I'm taking this right here. It's like 1/2 inch wide, but we're going to fold it so it kind of gets a little thicker. So it's like this. And then I'm going to place it over the top of the bear's head. And it's coming slightly onto the snout too. This is where the snout kind of start to get a little smaller. This is just his forehead. And then we're going to give him some cheeks. And there's a chance you might need to make his forehead bigger, which I probably will with mine. I'm going to give him a brim to his nose, though. I'm going to take a small piece of wool here, fold it, and this is going to go down the middle of his face onto the snout we added. Now we're going to give him kind of like cheeks. We're going to just take a small chunk of wool, about the same amount we used for the forehead, maybe a little smaller. We're going to take and we're going to line it up with the top of the forehead, but we're going to curve it with our finger so it comes down along the side of the face and slightly onto the snout. So it's like this C shape that we end up with. And then do the same on the opposite side. One of the hard parts here is, of course, trying to keep everything the same size on both, you know, from one side of the face to the other profiles, so they're symmetrical. Okay, so I'm going to felt this up, firm it up a little for the face, and then we're going to start shaping some more. Add in a nose. A nose will really help make things more obvious as to what we're creating. So this is it all felted around the face pretty well. My snout got a little small, and yours might too, which is just kind of how it happens. Or yours might be perfectly fine in size. So I'm just going to take a small piece, kind of wrap it around. Not the bottom part. My bottom part I want to remain pretty much like it is. I'm going to build up the snout a little bit more. Just the tiniest bit off in size, I think. And then we're going to add a nose. So our nose, we're just going to use some black coir wool. You might have noticed on this thing, all I've used is black, not black, but coir wool. Yeah, we didn't really need any top coat. I mean, we can around the eyes when we do that, but it's not a necessity. All right, so to add our nose, we're just going to take some black wool, roll it with our fingers a little, just a little bit, you know, small little ball. We're going to place it right at the tip of the nose, but it's also going to come up above a little bit. Try and keep everything kind of in line. I'm using a 38. You might want to switch to a 40. You can see how I kind of pulled that over the top of the nose. You can give your nose a little definition too if you want by poking in a little more in certain areas, but this is kind of a whimsical little bear, not realistic, so I'm not worrying about it. I'm not even going to give him much of a mouth. But we are going to give him some eyes. So with that, I'm just going to use my needle. Right where the snout starts, we're going to line up across there, and we're going to do 2 little holes. Now you can use glass eyes, or you can use wool. I do black dots, little hole, dots there. And then you can do a speck of white in there to do your eyes. I'm going to pull out my eyes real quick here. I'm using these cabochon eyes. If this is on my Amazon list, my favorite things, I'm using really small ones. They're probably 3 mm. And then you're going to take some glue. It's up to you what kind of glue you use, whatever is your favorite. And then you're going to do just the tiniest little dot right where the eye goes of your glue. Okay. Now we're going to let that dry. You could go around it with just a little bit of our gray. I'm going to let it dry a little more before I do that. It doesn't have to happen, but it does kind of help make it, give it a little bit of a pop. Now, one thing you could do too, while you're waiting for that to dry, is give your bear a little rump. So just a little line down the middle that you pretty much draw on with your needle. A 36 gauge is perfect for this. Just make sure he has even cheeks. Nothing too fancy there, just a little line. It feels a little funny doing it sometimes. Once you get to really realistic animals, it feels really, really odd. So now we're going to go ahead and take some gray and we're going to put it around our bear's eye. Just a small little piece. Doesn't take very much. You're going to want a smaller needle, 38 or even a 40 for this, because otherwise the wool will get lost in there. Okay, and then a little bit on the other side. Okay, now we're going to make ears, and for the ears, I'm actually going to be using some of the wool felt that was listed in our supply list. If you're watching this on YouTube, it didn't come with a supply list, so, but there is a supply list for members of Rustic Fiber Academy, or for those who purchase the course, which the course is free. So if you get on Rustic Fiber Academy, you can actually access this course for free, and then you get the supply list that comes along with it, which is kind of nice. All right, so I'm going to get out the wool sheets that I'm going to use, and then I'm going to show you how we attach those and how I make the eyes. All right, so I have this red and blue. Keep deliberating. I think I might go with the red. So what you want to do is cut out 2 ear shapes. Now, you don't have to do it this way. You could just felt out 2 ear shapes. That would be perfectly fine. Kind of make sure they're going to work. Hold them up there. But I really like doing this. So you're going to just felt right onto that wool and cover it. And then I like to leave some wool on the bottom that is going to attach. Now you can see some of that's coming through. You can just poke it back pretty much. And I like to kind of fold some wool over if I have any. Okay. So we have that. Now we can attach it to our bear. And just do it right above on top of the head and the back. You can play around with positioning though, because it really does determine on how your bear is going to look in the end. Like, it makes a big difference where the ears are. once both ears are attached, it's really easy to finish up. You can either finish by just having both ears on there and calling it good, or you can go ahead and do what I call the Patchwork Bear, which is the finished product that you see in the picture, where we cut out pieces of this felt and we attach it to our bear. It kind of gives it this antique vintagey vibe. Now, one other thing you could do that really will help maintain how long your bear is going to last like this, if you go over the whole thing for a little bit with a 40 gauge needle, it'll really firm it up and it'll make it so you don't get as many fuzzies that kind of start to appear the more it's handled and moved around. So it's a smart thing to do, especially if your bear's not just going to be sitting in one spot, if he's going to be transported from place to place, depending on what his outcome in life is. If you're going to turn him into an ornament, then I really recommend it, because as an ornament, he's going to be moved around on a tree. He's going to be up against pine needles. They're going to pull at him. So using that 40 gauge needle over the top would be really beneficial. Okay. Got some, and then you can also go through and just trim off anything as well. So then to add the patches, it's so easy. I just pick some colors and I cut off random shapes. Nothing crazy. Keep them little. And then I just pick some spots and I felt it in. Because it's 100% wool, it will just get felted in there. Now, if you don't have 100% wool, you might have to do a little trick where you just grab a piece of wool and you cover up the edges and felt it in. And then you can just randomly place them wherever you feel like it might be kind of cute. So I'm going to do that with mine, and then it'll be all finished. Besides going over with the 40 gauge.